Hi, everybody. Greetings to those of you who are already online. I think people are going to be logging in here pretty quick. I'm Kate, Communications and Outreach Coordinator for the Natural Areas Association, and I want to welcome you to how to use an open source platform to manage multiple cross-agency conservation projects, an introduction to ProjectFirma. So thanks so much for being here today. We've got a couple minutes before we're going to get started. And I've got a question for you, and I always have a question, and I wanted to, it's always good to warm up. So to answer and to ask questions today, and to, we're going to ask people to use the chat function. And the question that I want to ask is, how do you track performance of your projects? Obviously, this is a webinar that talks about a platform that you can use to do that, but we're sort of wondering, how do you use now? I mean, some people just use Excel spreadsheets. So, but there are a lot of other options out there, and we're sort of curious to know what you're using. So take a look at the at the chat box and open it up. And I'm doing the same. One tip for using the chat is that when it says to, choose all panelists and attendees, and then everyone will see your question, not just the panelists. It's always good that the attendees can see your question too, so that everyone can see what the questions everyone is asking. Probably one good question is, can everyone hear me? Always good to ask. Yay! Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Keegan. I appreciate it. Always good to double check on that. Yeah, so the question, how do you track performance of your projects? This doesn't need to be anything long or involved, just what do you use? Right now in our office for the Natural Areas Association, we're talking about this topic too, because we track our projects in a lot of different ways. So we're looking for the best and the brightest, but I think for natural areas professionals, it's a whole different thing. So yeah, let us know in the chat box what you use in your organization to track performance of projects, if you don't mind. We're curious to find out. So it's just at noon, so we're going to get officially started here. Yeah, Susan's like, we only use spreadsheets, unfortunately. Excel. Yeah, you and a lot of other people. Excel is the thing we love to hate and we hate to love. So welcome again to how to use an open source platform to manage multiple cross-agency conservation projects, introduction to ProjectFirma. And I want to welcome Matt Deniston, who is a founder and managing partner of Sitka Technology. He's going to be our speaker today, and we are really grateful to have him with us. Thank you so much, Bad. He's also going to be speaking at this year's Natural Areas Conference as part of the Maximizing Data and Technology to Inform Natural Areas Management track. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. And Sitka Technology is also one of our sponsors, so we're really grateful for that as well. A few more answers from people. Keegan says, we're currently using ArcGIS online, photo monitoring, and eyeballing it in the field. Excel and Word for narrative reporting, says Susan. Ruth says, oh, they have an in-house designed and maintained database. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that some people are able to use that. Giselle says, Marathi, Excel spreadsheets, and OneNote. Yeah, OneNote is definitely out there. All right, thank you everybody, and welcome again. So I'm gonna jump in here and share my screen. And oh, I think I am sharing. Whoops. Always fun. Okay, we know where we are. And just a few words about us, and I think many of you have heard this before, especially if you've been on these webinars before, but I try to mix it up a little bit so you stick around. For those of you who don't know us, we are the Natural Areas Association. We've been working to support the community of natural areas practitioners for about 40 years. So we've been around a long time. We are the only national nonprofit membership organization dedicated to the support and advancement of that community. So that's our mission, our only mission. We are here for people exactly like you. Many of you already know us through the journal, which is our quarterly peer-reviewed publication. There's a picture of it right there. A subscription to the journal comes with your membership to the Natural Areas Association. We also hold the Natural Areas Conference annually, and I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. We invite you to become a member if you are not already. There are a lot of significant benefits. We really could use your support. And if you take advantage of these webinars, we very much appreciate you becoming a member. It's not very expensive. It's $75 a year. That's our starter. So that's less than a fancy coffee per month. There are other options and other levels depending on what you're interested in, but it's there. It's on our website, naturalareas.org. Just a little bit about webinars. Webinars are a part of our commitment to this community. Right now, bringing relevant information to you about new strategies, new tools, like what you're going to hear about today, new management. That's what we're all about. We want to make sure that you have the information you need to do your jobs well and most efficiently, especially now that everyone has less time than ever. So our series is currently free to everyone. That may change in the future. So take that into consideration if you think about joining. Right now we have 2 entire series up free on YouTube, and you can get to it through links on our website. We have the very popular 2018 NAA Pollinator Management webinar series, all available to you online. And we also have our regular series, of which this is the last this year. Unless we might squeeze in another one, but this is probably the last this year, and that is also all available to you. A recording of this one will be available as soon as I can get it up after the ending of this webinar. So here's the big story, and I won't take too much time. I'm sure some of you have already heard some information about this, but we're really excited. The conference is coming October 23 through the 25th in Bloomington, Indiana, which is beautiful, by the way, if you have not been there. We're just going to have really some amazing programming, and I've put all of the, not all of them, but many of the different topics that we're going to be covering here. I won't read them, don't worry. But we also have 6 ID workshops running. We have 2 full-day pre-conference workshops, one on best management practices for pollinators by the Xerces Society. We're really thrilled to have them. And Adapting to Climate Change by folks from the Land Trust Alliance, the Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science, and the Nature Conservancy. They're all going together to do this full-day pre-conference workshop, so check it out. We also have 7 field workshops, including canoeing and karst caves. And I've seen some video, and it's something. Early bird registration closes on August 31st. That's coming right on up, folks, and you don't want to miss that window because then it gets more expensive and nobody wants that. And also, capacity for the field workshops and for some of these other workshops that I've mentioned is limited. And we can't guarantee that everybody, will get what they want. So signing up early is a good idea. A little bit more, if you're interested in this topic, the topic of using data and technology and the latest advances in natural areas management, we got that at the conference. So we have a whole symposium dealing with that topic. And in fact, the person who proposed that topic, Gil Nelson, is the man who very kindly did our I Dig Bio webinar last month. So he's going to be at the conference as well. And then the sessions sorry, I have to move my screen here. So the sessions for maximizing data and technology to inform natural areas, that's actually a whole track. It's going to take place on Tuesday and Thursday, and Matt's going to be part of that. And then we also have a digital herbarium workshop with Paul Rothrock, which he's kind of legendary in Indiana. He's the associate curator of the Indiana University Herbarium, and that's on Thursday afternoon. So we got lots of stuff. Please look into it. You can access all of that information at naturalareas.org about our conference. There we go. And finally, I want to thank our partner for the U.S. Forest Service for their support for this series. We've got some other surprises with the U.S. Forest Service to announce very soon about the conference that I think are going to be pretty exciting to people, but I can't tell you what they are today. So you're going to have to stay tuned, and hopefully you are on our mailing list, which you can get on our conference, on our website. Okay. Before we turn to the presentation, I remind you that this webinar is going to be available as soon as I can get it up. You'll find the link on our website. I will also add the link to your follow-up Zoom email, so you'll have it. Some housekeeping, as I said, please use the chat function to ask questions. And Matt will sort of answer them at times throughout. I'm going to sort of, interject when people have questions. So please do use the chat function. And if that's it, I think we're going to turn this over to Matt. Thank you, Matt. Take it away.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on your webcast series. I'm going to go ahead and take over control of the screen share. Bear with me one sec. Let me do that. There we go. You're seeing that okay on your side, Kate?
Looks good. Yeah.
Okay. So for real quick, our agenda today is going to briefly go over our history and how ProjectFirma came about with our work with Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, quickly review some of the current community members, give you an overview of how ProjectFirma works, and then get into an online demo, and then try to make sure we have some time for Q&A at the end. So try to keep this moving along today for you. First, a real quick introduction. I'm Matt Deniston, one of the founders of Sitka. My personal background is in human factors engineering. I love working with multidisciplinary teams and clients to design systems, to build knowledge infrastructures, we like to call them, that meet people where they're at, that integrate into their existing workflows, that make their lives easier and better. Of course, I could do that in a wide range of industries, so I consider myself pretty lucky to be able to focus on the people that run natural area programs like yourselves. So Sitka as a company, we have a staff of 28 folks, and we're entirely focused on conservation, restoration, and sustainable development, supporting folks that do those things. After 10 years as a company, we've learned that the places where we can provide the most value is when the problem space is about realizing operational efficiencies, where there's a need to track performance of programs, and or where there's a need to help programs leverage their investments in data collection analysis in order to actually do adaptive management and make more informed decisions. So some of our clients here, they range, as you can see, from nonprofits like Audubon and the Nature Conservancy to local organizations like Oregon Metro. And for them, we've worked for many years within their natural areas and parks division to help them operationalize and streamline what they do, to state agencies like Montana Department of Natural Resources or the Puget Sound Partnership, and also federal agencies like BLM, EPA, U.S. Forest Service, USGS. In today's webcast, I will be focusing on our work for Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, and during the demonstration, show you a little about how the Coalition of California Resource Conservation Districts is using the platform. So the story of ProjectFirma started with a public investment in Lake Tahoe and was then leveraged to ensure sustainable land practices in California and to help protect salmon in Oregon's Clackamas watershed, whose namesake river flows into the Columbia River. So that's some of our home waters here in Oregon. And most recently, to help restore forest in Colorado's Front Range. So these are some of the places we've had the privilege to work in, where we've helped managers of those natural areas make use of ProjectFirma's open source license to enhance the transparency, reporting, and analysis of their cross-agency programs. So with the context of place and those photos, here's a quick summary of the technology, or the home pages at least, of the various folks that are using the ProjectFirma platform in the community today. The most recent addition is Idaho's Conservation Commission, and they have an organization with an accomplishment tracking and storytelling need that's pretty similar to the California Resource Conservation Districts. So these homepage screenshots may seem like different web applications, but they're all instances of ProjectFirma where we've worked with those folks to customize the application, the platform to fit their needs and to meet their branding needs for the individual programs. So this next slide just provides a timeline of some of the key events in the development and adoption of this platform since 2014. So it all started when TRPA put out an RFP looking for a better way than the multitude of spreadsheets and some limited work in GIS to track their projects, the funding, and their accomplishments of its 50-plus partners around the Tahoe Basin. They run an environmental improvement program, which has been around for 20 years, that has put over $2 billion on the ground. And while folks were doing some amazing work, they were struggling with ways to get the story out, to communicate what's being done, what still needs to be done to connect with their funders. And so that was part of the context and the mission that they set us on to begin with. So the first priority was to streamline the process for their partners to provide annual updates on their projects. So instead of sending out the spreadsheet template and asking folks to fill it out and send it back in and then going through the process of normalizing and compiling all that data, they asked us to figure out a way to do it online that people actually enjoyed using and would use. So after better than expected response and a pretty strong adoption from partners, TRPA was encouraged to invest further in things like allowing users to upload GIS files to provide a more detailed visual depiction of their projects on the ground, and to do things like auto-generate project fact sheets so that projects could be better represented in the public eye. So in 2016, TRPA put a reciprocal open source license on the technology so that other agencies and programs could leverage their investment, but also so that TRPA could realize the benefits of their other people's contributions to the platform, and so that everyone in the community could benefit. So this type of open source model has been used for a long time in Silicon Valley garages and boardrooms. It's the same model behind the Linux operating system and Firefox web browser, where it's all community developed. But TRPA, I think, broke some new ground by applying it at the local regional government level. So hats off to TRPA's strategic benevolence, as we like to say. So that their granting of that open source license inspired us to contribute our own resources to abstract the EIP project tracker functionality so that it was more configurable and would work for programs other than TRPA. So technically speaking, we created a multi-tenant application to make it easier, quicker, and cheaper for others to start using it. And then in 2017, we started to see just that. Other organizations began adopting it to help them track their program accomplishments, to do landscape scale planning and coordination across multiple partners, and really kind of up their game in a multi-agency, multi-stakeholder environment. So ProjectFirma doesn't do the day-to-day tracking of individual activities and events and contracts and work orders and task orders and invoicing. We have worked in those kind of systems, but ProjectFirma is really more geared towards building partnerships and tracking projects at a little bit higher level and connecting to stakeholders in the public about what's happening. So this next slide, we often get asked, how much investment has been put into ProjectFirma? This does a quick summary of it. In short, a little over $1 million so far, with TRPA investing the lion's share, using some of their own funds, but also funds that they receive through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, from U.S. Forest Service, and some of the other partners around the lake. So with that context, I thought I wanted to highlight, before getting into demo, and I'll show you some of these project fact sheets during the demo, I wanted to highlight one of the areas that I think was key to the success of adoption, people not having a problem using it and getting some benefit out of it. And that is having the system automatically generate attractive fact sheets that people can use for outreach and education and annual reports with funders. So the old school picture is how it used to be done, where these fact sheets were manually created for just a few out of hundreds of projects. Would take TRP estimated 8 to 12 hours per project to do. The new school, after doing some whiteboard sessions with TRPA, was something that we were able to generate automatically based on data provided by implementers. So they spend 10 to 15 minutes updating their projects, and they get a fact sheet that's reflective of what's happening on the ground, and they can help tell their story. So more recently, we expanded this functionality to support automated funding request sheets for projects that are in earlier stages, so projects that are proposed or maybe in planning and design. And the idea there is project implementers or project proponents could take those fact sheets to public outreach events or to funders and say, this is what we'd like you to get involved with and support. One of our partners that we work with, the Clackamas Partnership, recently put together a multi-million-dollar grant application, and they were able to leverage these funding fact sheets for individual projects extensively in that application. And I think it helped them demonstrate to their funders that they had done the legwork to identify which projects should be funded in this next phase for the watershed restoration. And it wasn't just a list of projects, but it was projects with a little bit more tactile feel. You get a before photo, you get a sense of where the project is sited, and a sense of how much funding they've got lined up already and what the ask is for the additional funding. So before getting into the demo, I wanted to give a little bit of a background on the data model behind ProjectFirma to give you a sense of what it does, what it helps you manage. So at the center is the project, of course, and that's really the core of the system. After a project, probably the most important thing that it does is support tracking of funding sources and performance measures, and that's what really allows folks to tell their story. The other objects around the perimeter are things that help answer questions like, what did we accomplish in area X or watershed Y over the past 5 years, and how much did it cost? Or questions like, what have we done and what do we plan to do to improve water quality or to benefit a species of concern? Or even better yet, which projects have we done or are we planning to do that will result in multiple benefits? So by having a relatively straightforward but powerful data model like this, you can mix and match across these dimensions and answer a wide range of questions. So here's a few ways in which the system automatically generates views or little mini reports, if you will, visualizations that help tell the story. So the first is a map that simply blends project with watershed, showing a Huck 12 watershed and the projects that are happening in it or near it that are benefiting that watershed. The second is combines detailed individual project accomplishments for a particular performance measure or metric, in this case acres of habitat restored or enhanced. So you're looking at many, many years of project accomplishments being summarized, and in this case, broken down by habitat type as well. And then the third chart is more the money chart, showing where's all the funding coming from, by which sectors. So it's aggregating a bunch of funding source and detailed project level information to kind of summarize for program managers to understand funding streams. So while getting the right data model in place is essential, what really provides the efficiency of data entry and resulting information that you can rely on or well-designed workflows. So ProjectFirma supports 3 workflows, all of which follow the same process depicted here. These deliver the lifeblood of accurate, timely, reliable project information that enables folks to do that tracking and reporting and storytelling. These workflows are proposing a new project, adding an existing project, or updating an existing project. And this is where much of the community's investment has been focused in the platform in order to make it as easy as possible for partners to participate. And the key is that if you make it easy, you can distribute that data entry workload across all of your partners, the folks actually implementing the projects, the folks that have the most timely information about the project at their fingertips, rather than asking or saddling a couple staff members back at the headquarters office to do all the data entry themselves. That's I think a pretty key consideration as you guys think about how to scale out the tracking of your projects. So my last slide before getting into a demo is just also a common question we get is what kind of roles and permissions are supported in the system. We try to keep it pretty simple. We've got an administrator who you can see can do a number of things, most things in the system. Then we've got a reviewer role that's really in charge of quality and reviewing and approving or returning proposals or project updates. They also can edit or create project proposals or updates on behalf of their colleagues or their partners. And then we've got partners of the general users. These are the folks that are implementing projects, and they're getting in there to do things like proposing new projects or updating existing projects. And then last are the general public and stakeholders who get in there just to view and access information about what's happening. So that's the main part of my slide deck there. I thought I'd get into demo land here in a second. So I'll switch this over. But as I'm switching, if you guys have any questions about what I covered, I know I kind of went fast. I wanted to be able to get to the demo. But if you have questions, please let me know.
I just wanted to mention, it looks like somebody asked a question in Q&A, and if we could just have you retype that into the chat box and make sure that it's to all panelists and attendees, then we'll all be able to see it.
Yeah, I just looked over there. The question was, looks like there's a lot of different customers. How do you keep the data separate? Well, in the database in the backend is a multi-tenant application and system, so that folks' individual data is kept separate in the system, but they all share the same data schema, and the code base is also shared. That's what allows the improvements made by certain community members to be shared by everyone. So we feel pretty strongly that that's the right way to build out a system like this in order to keep the cost low. You see TRPA invested quite a bit, and the folks that are coming behind them to use this platform is a fraction of what they put into it. And that's partly because of that, or largely because of that multi-tenant architecture. So on the demo, I thought I'd start with the EIP project tracker and the work at TRPA, and then get into the RCD project tracker and show you what it looks and feels like to get in there and update a project or to see a funding request sheet. So the EIP project tracker is one of many tools within the platform, but the one we're going to focus on today. Here is the homepage that kind of highlights the different areas and programs they have, gives you a quick overview thumbnail map with all the projects that have been implemented, and they've got this kind of featured projects carousel down at the bottom. I'm going to drill in a little bit today to the forest management area, and within it, the forest ecosystem and health hazardous fuels reduction program. So there's a kind of a flexible hierarchy of how you set up the organization of your projects, and that's configurable in ProjectFirma. Here we're looking at a summary of one of their programs. You can see a description, a map of just those projects that are in that program. And then along the right-hand side, you see some of the performance measures tied to that program. So acres of forest fuels reduction treatment. And some of these performance measures you can kind of pivot and say, I want to look at it by whether it's initial or maintenance treatment, or I might want to look at it by treatment type and see the different types of fuels reduction happening. So this is all just pulling from data provided by underlying projects. And scrolling down, you get other performance measures like how much money has been invested in this particular program over time and the number of projects completed. So down below, you can see the full list of projects. You see there's 133 projects under this program. And let's say I'm just interested in those that are still in implementation phase. So I just filtered the list down to 30. And maybe I'm interested in those that are, less than $1 million in total cost. So you can quickly kind of do some on-the-fly querying and get into find the projects you're interested in or a subset of them. People often ask, how do you get the data out of the system? There's data grids throughout that you can click download table and pull that data into Excel for offline analysis. But let's take a look at this sugar pine restoration project in the basin. So this is one of those fact sheets that we talked about that gives a high-level summary of what's going on, who's implementing the project, who the primary contact is, the duration of the project, highlights its key accomplishments, gives you a detailed map. This particular project's got a number of different sites around the basin that it's managing the restoration, and then shows the expenditures to date, where the money's coming from. And they've uploaded a few before, during, and after photos just to tell the story of the restoration on the ground. If I'm curious and want to know more, I can go to project details, and this is going to show all that information plus a lot more. It's going to break down, for example, the different organizations involved and what their roles in the project, and give you some of the people involved with this project. It will also tally up the details of the performance measures over time for each year. You can see the fact sheet just reported the overall, but you can see the breakdown by year and the expenditures from those different funding sources. And then the full range of photos. So you actually have control over which photos show up in the fact sheet. And all this is public. I'm not logged in this system right now. One thing that I think is helpful is often just taking a look at an individual organization and seeing what their role is overall in the program. So I'm going to click on the U.S. Forest Service.
Matt, when you have a second, Giselle has asked a question too.
Sure. Let me pop over to the chat. Yeah, so the question is, can you summarize the key differences between ProjectFirma and Meraki Desktop or Meraki Share when you would want to use each, given Sitka has had a hand in developing all three platforms? Yeah, great question. So Meraki and Meraki Share, for folks who aren't aware on the call, is software that helps people implement the open standards for the practice of conservation. Which is another way to say that is folks that are working to do long-term conservation planning and to be more explicit about their theory of change and creating, kind of diagramming out what their end goals are, what their targets are, and then working backwards to say, I need to take a set of intermediate results, and I'm going to measure it along the way and figure out if I'm on track or not. So, I would say, Giselle, that Mirati is great for folks that are working at that scale and trying to really map out their theory of change. The day-to-day or the tracking of individual projects and highlighting their accomplishments and creating more of a public portal into a program and coordinating across partners is something I think ProjectFirma does a better job at. But we have had customers like Tahoe Regional Planning Agency that have done some work in Mirati in order to define their performance measures. So they've backed their performance measures by grounding them in a theory of change, and then they use the ProjectFirma platform to do the actual project tracking. So we'd love to create more connections between the two platforms. That's something that our upcoming work with Puget Sound Partnership may allow us to do. So it's a wish list for us, is to allow folks to do that planning and then bring the project details into ProjectFirma and have the two systems more coordinated. All right, so back to the demo here. We're now looking at the summary page for the U.S. Forest Service and seeing all the projects that they have been participated in, either as a funder or as an implementer. So a quick overview. You can see they have provided 3 different types of funding sources to the region. You can see those charted here over time and how they've changed. And down below you see all the projects. So they've been a really important partner in the Tahoe Basin, helping get 313 projects either completed or in implementation or in the planning stage. So they've been a big partner along the way. Then you can also just take a look at the accomplishments for the projects that they've been involved with. So the system will automatically generate these views that filter it down to the thing you're looking at. So in this case, this organization. So with that kind of context with TRPA, I thought I'd switch over and take a look at the RCD tracker. And this is another instance of ProjectFirma that has been used by a coalition of resource conservation districts in California. So this is their homepage. You can see there's some similarities with EIP tracker for TRPA. And they've got a featured projects thing down below. It looks different. The style sheet can be swapped out and customized per instance. One of the things that we built for them was a list that just shows the different RCDs that are participating in the program, in the communal tracking of all the projects that are happening. If I drill down into Mendocino County, I can take a look at their boundary of their RCD and the projects that they have been involved with. The list of projects is down below, and the users that are involved. And you can see their expenditures and accomplishments as well. But I think right now what I'd like to do is just drill into one project and show you what it's like to update a project. So this is the Denmark Creek Fish Passage Barrier Removal and Riparian Restoration Project. I can click on through and take a look at its fact sheet. And if I go into project details, and I do need to log in order to get in there and do an update. So I'm going to log in, and then I have this update project button. So people can come in and proactively update their project, or you can set up a period, like an annual or even quarterly or whatever frequency you like, cadence for asking people to do project updates, in which case the ProjectFirma system will email out those folks and say, hey, it's that time. Again, please log in and update the following projects. And we'll give them links to the project. We'll take them straight to the update page. So I'm going to walk you through what it's like to update a project and give you a sense of those workflows that I talked about earlier. So the first page is just some instructions. We'll go ahead and fast forward through that and begin this update. So let's say this project description is, we've done more work on this project and I can come up with a better description, give people an idea what we're doing. I'm going to bounce over here. So here's the Mendocino Counties has featured this project briefly on their webpage, but I could do something like, let me just copy this text from the bottom here, because that's a decent description, and paste it in here. And now I've got a little bit more complete picture, and let's say the total estimated cost has gone up a little bit. It's now 110. So if I save this, one of the things that you can do once you save it is the system will actually help you see the changes that you just made relative to what was in the system before. And folks have found that as a helpful feature, both when they're drafting their updates, but also for reviewers when they're approving it, just to see what's changed really quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and go forward to the location detailed, so I can go to any one of these steps. You can see the check marks will tell me which things have met the minimum requirements for data entry, and then the red triangles showing me that I've got some information that's expected under performance measures. But what I want to do is come in and actually, we've got a better sense of the detailed location of this project, so I'm just zooming in on the map, and I can do things like maybe add a polygon that's showing on one side of the river the work that we're doing, and I can add a note if I like. I'm not going to bother doing that right now, but I could do my polygon on one side of the river. You'll forgive my crude mapping skills here. Let's say these are two areas that are of treatment that we're doing, and I can go ahead and save that. This is where I'd also upload a GIS file if I had one that described my project, but I've already done the work and I don't want to redraw it here. The system will take an ArcGIS geodatabase. Next, I can identify the watersheds that this project is benefiting. So right now I've just got this one Anderson Creek Huck 12 watershed, but let's say this project's got some additional downstream benefits for these other watersheds nearby. So I just added a couple watersheds that this project's benefiting. I can detail out the organizations or update information about the organizations involved. But I'm going to go to the performance measures, and it's telling me, I've got missing performance measures expected in 2018 because it is 2018 after all. And maybe by this time you should have accomplishments, or maybe you don't, and you just need to explain why you don't have an accomplishment in 2018. You can do that. So let's just say we've done some more stream corridor restoration. So in 2017, we did some bank stabilization work, and it was, let's say, 300 linear feet of that. And then in 2018, we did some riparian buffer work where we did some planting in 400 linear feet. So now that I've got at least one accomplishment in 2018, once I save this, it's going to give me a check mark, and the green flag also is an indication that things have changed, things have updated within this update that I'm about to submit. And then on the expenditure side, it's also telling me, hey, you need to say you got $0 or you got something from these other funding sources in this year. So let's say that we got another 16K from the EMPP funding source, which is the California Natural Resources Association or Agency, I think. And then we got another 30K from the Marin County General Fund. And then last, we got some landowner cost share on this project. So I'm going to add that as a new funding source and say I got, didn't get anything in these last few years or the prior years, but I got 10,000 this year. So now I've detailed out expenditures for the current year, and I can submit this thing. I could alternatively add additional photos. So let me do that real quick, give you a sense of what that feels like. So I've got a photo here of that stream bank stabilization I was talking about. I'm just going to call this stream bank stabilization for now, and say Joe Schmo was the one that took this, and this is an after photo. And I like this photo. I want to keep it in the fact sheet, so I'm going to upload that. And I could upload additional photos in a similar fashion. Alternatively, optionally, I can add some notes or some external links. So I might add a link to this, this page here, which is an alternative representation or a highlighter. I might have a press release that went out around this project. So I do that and just say story about this project. I can paste that in and add that link. So if I submit this project update behind the scenes, what's going to happen is it's going to take me to the details page. I'm no longer able to update it, but I can review what I did update. But the folks that have the reviewer role for this organization, for this RCD, just got an email notifying them that a project update's been submitted, and it's time, you might want to get in there and take a look at it and give them some feedback, either approve it or return it, asking for more information. So because I'm an administrator in the system, I'm going to skip showing you the email notification and then just go straight to the update. And I can go through the exact same interface that the user just went through. And let's say I'm interested in the new performance measures. So I want to take a look at it, make sure they didn't accidentally add an extra 0, etc. So I can scroll on down and take a look at that show changes and see that in 2018, they didn't make any accomplishments or add any accomplishments for these other performance measures, but they did add a couple stream corridor restoration performance measures where we added the 300 linear feet for the stabilization and the 400 linear feet for the planting and the riparian buffer. So this project looks good to me. If I were to, I could add comments and return it back to the person who submitted it. They get an email saying, hey, Matt reviewed this and has some questions on some of these, or wanted to double check the figures, and then they could resubmit it after that, or I could go ahead and just straight away approve this, in which case all this information I just entered is now going to show up on the project fact sheet. So if I look at the fact sheet now, you can see the expenditure pie charts, been updated. We've got the landowner local share in there. You can see additional watersheds being highlighted on the map, and you can see that after photo that I added below. So that's how the workflows basically work, not only for updating a project, but proposing a project. It's going to have some additional steps, or some different steps, I should say. But that's the gist of it. Thought maybe I would show you real quick what a funding request sheet looks like. This is another project in another RCD, the Inland Empire RCD down in Southern California. This project is to do some recycling ranch for a farm abatement program. And you can see they've added in an aerial imagery showing you where some of their sites are going to be. They've got 3 different sites that are involved in this project, and so far they've got secured funding of just a small amount, and then they are targeting funding from the farm and ranch solid waste cleanup fund within the Cal Recycle program. So, and these fact sheets are designed to be able to print and kind of guaranteed to print on the front and back of one piece of paper. So if I look at that, it's going to ask me to log in, so let's skip that for now. The last thing I thought I'd show you is getting a little bit behind the scenes on how you might manage and configure the system. So as an administrator, you have the ability to go in and change and adjust or add to the project hierarchy or taxonomy adjust the project themes, add, remove, update performance measures, take a look at all the users in the system, and assign them user roles or update their permissions. You can decide which projects you want to feature. There's a tagging capability, so you can tag projects for kind of ephemeral analysis. And yeah, there are a number of things you can do. So let me show you real quick. Let's just say we wanted to add a program in the hierarchy. I'm just going to real quick say this is Matt's program, and it's underneath the climate change and mitigation and adaptation resource area, or I could change it and put it under a different resource area. Give it a description, set its theme color, and save that. Now when I look at the program info and look at projects by type, and I look at this, you'll see there's a new program in the list here, and now projects can be associated with that program. So that's a pathway to allow you to continuously adapt to changing program needs on the ground without having programmers get involved to help you update your database or your system.
Matt, did you see Giselle's question about how to look at across many projects? Is this because it sounded like you might have answered part of that question?
Yeah. So the question is, is there a way to look across many projects, high-level progress assessment? There's a couple different ways. I think you may be thinking of it in the context of Marathi share, and there's things that are close, but a little bit not quite the same. This view I'm on right now is a way to browse and take a look at all the projects across the program. So the RCD tracker has a little over 100 projects now, and you can see its distribution here across the different resource areas and then across the programs. So that quickly just gives you a list of those projects. If you wanted to see the accomplishments and the progress towards some of their goals within one of these areas, I could go to water restoration, for example, and now I'm seeing its accomplishments. So the accomplishments tied to this program are special status crustacean species habitat, agricultural conservation practice. They haven't entered any performance measures there, but they've got a number of agricultural conservation practices from NRCS flagged there. So that's one way to get an assessment of how your projects are doing and how you're making progress at a higher level. Depending on the need, we have built kind of custom views and dashboards. So one thing we did for the RCDs that they invested in and that we made available to the other members of the community is this accomplishments dashboard. So it shows, I can drill down in one of the individual RCDs, where I can stay at a high level, look at all the RCDs across the state that are participating and using this, and say, what kind of work do they do? And here I'm looking at results by one of the particular resource areas and seeing the accomplishments. I might be interested, instead of the accomplishments, the funding. So I'm now looking at results from 2000 to 2018. I can change this and narrow the date range and the year range and see where the investment's been being made by funding source sector. And then I can also just see the partners who are RCDs working with and how many projects are they involved with. So hopefully that answers your question. So it looks like we've got another question here. A few of them are coming in. So is there a one-time upfront cost? Yes, I've got a slide on that. Let me bounce back over to that. I figured that question might come up. Go back to my slides. Set. You guys seeing my screen there?
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. So costs fall into these four categories. There's an annual application management fee of $10,000, and that allows us to keep the system up and running, bug fixes, and keep it up to date, and do some minor enhancements. And there's initial setup, which generally is costing around $20,000. It kind of depends on your needs and how complex your program is. That's where we sit down and consult with you on how to set up that project taxonomy, what your categories you want to use for various reporting needs. So that's setting up your project themes. That's the way they called them in the RCD tracker. And then there's some data migration. Typically, so you don't have to do data migration. You can enter the data in yourself and start fresh, or if you want to go back in time and slurp in data from your spreadsheets, that's just a matter of working with you to figure out the best way to do that. And that typically ranges between $5,000 and $20,000. And then there's also times where folks want to add custom features to better fit their needs, and that cost is variable depending on the needs. So let's see here.
Yeah, there was also a question from Damon about, do you have to be logged in to see the accomplishments dashboard?
No, you don't. In fact, I'll just demonstrate that real quick. If I log out here, it's going to log me out. And those results are all still there. So I'm still looking at that. Let's see. Any other questions coming in? Switch back over here.
Yeah, does anybody else have some questions? Because this would be the time. We got Matt right here, so.
Fix my screen share.
I should add that if anybody ends up having questions, Matt, are you going to throw your email back up onto the screen so that people can contact you or somebody else at Sitka?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. I'm just going to share my desktop. It's not wanting to let me share my screen here for some reason. Let me try one more time here. I'm not sure what's going on.
Sometimes that happens. Oh, it's coming. Here we go.
Back now?
Thanks for your patience, people.
Yeah, we'll go back to contact information here. Yeah, I will absolutely make the slides available, and you feel free to distribute them. I think Damon will probably put this on our website as well. One thing I wanted to kind of make a note of is that at the upcoming October Natural Resource Areas Conference in Bloomington, we will be, as Kate mentioned, we'll be presenting, and we would love to present with one of you if you're interested in trying out ProjectFirma. We'll work with you to stand up an instance of it and be able to talk about the experience of working with it initially. I think that would be a lot more impactful than just hearing us talk. And we will we'll get that initial instance up and running for you for free for the first year. So if folks are interested in trying that out and sharing the stage with us, you can contact Damon after that. His information's right there.
Yeah, and I just wanted, there's a couple more questions that came in that I know you'll want to answer, Matt, but I wanted to emphasize that too, because when Matt and the folks at Sitka sort of approached us with this idea, we were like, well, that sounds great. And so we certainly hope that there are some of you who would find that to be an offer that you'd want to take advantage of, because we would really like to, I think most people would like to see this kind of as it's applied to, even an organization they know about or have seen through natural areas conferences, because I think people will see the relevance more clearly under those circumstances. So I hope somebody somebody bites. And there's a
Yes,
couple of
there's
questions.
a question from Alistair, it looks like. Is there a capacity for multi-stage review from within an agency and then a funder? No. What we have done is allow multiple reviewers to be in the loop on the review, so they'll both get notifications that a project update's been made, but there's not like a multi-stage approval process where one person may do the initial review and someone could do the second level review and approve. We've done those kind of workflow systems for other programs, so I think we had a good handle on how to do it. If that was something that one of the community members wanted to add to the platform, it would not be too difficult. I imagine it would be useful to other organizations as well. Another question from Mark, how easy is it to add shapefiles for inclusion to report documents? Also, can additional information be added, additional categories be added by the program developer? Yeah, Mark, I didn't have time to demonstrate it, but you can upload a shapefile and in the system while you're doing your project update or as an administrator going straight to the project. And what the feature will do is look for all features in the system. If there is a notes field in the system, you can identify the field that you want to be imported as the single notes field for that geometry, and then save it, at which point it becomes part of the project record. So the other part of your question was, can additional information be added, additional categories? It's interesting you asked that. One of our more recent additions to the community, the Peaks to People Fund and in Colorado and the Idaho Conservation Commission both are interested in that type of functionality. And so we're in the process of adding that. And then actually another one of our upcoming users in the community, Washington Department of Natural Resources and their Forest Health group was interested in the same thing. So we will have the ability to add some basic project attributes to the system, give it a label, say what kind of fields you want it to be. Do you want it to be a text box, a drop-down menu, that kind of thing. Let's see, we have from Andrew, is there a built-in way to connect to ArcGIS Online? The underlying map server that we're using Leaflet it's an open source library for kind of lightweight web maps that Esri is supportive and helps develop. And then on the back end, depending on the needs of the client, we can tie it into a map server that's fed from GeoServer, an open source alternative to ArcGIS Online, or we can tie it into ArcGIS and have the maps and the tiles be served and layers be available from different GIS servers. Another question from Jeff Sharp. Can project data fields vary based on project resource area, e.g. water quality project compared to an upland habitat project? So no, we can't. The platform doesn't support that today. It has come up. In the end, it's one of those ideas that, at least so far, has been on the list for folks to consider adding, but ended up not making the cut at the end of the day. I don't know if they just had more pressing needs, or they decided or figured out that they didn't need that kind of variability. Yeah, I like the idea. It makes sense, I think, to be able to support that kind of mapping of fields to individual program types.
Okay, any other questions? We're at 1:03. I'm sure that Matt wouldn't mind hanging out for a couple more minutes if you did have some final questions.
Certainly. Just before everyone signs off, just say thanks for attending, and if you have any other questions or want to talk about how ProjectFirma might apply to your program, we of course love to talk with you.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and I think we're pretty much winding up here. I'm coming back up. Just if there are no more questions, we really want to thank Matt and the folks from Sitka Tech. They've definitely been they've been around. We appreciate their support, especially for the conference. That was really robust and interesting. So we'll have that up very, very soon. As soon as I can get it up, it'll be up. And I can put the link in your follow-up email, so you should have it within 24 hours, or you can just look before that. I'll probably have it up by tonight. Watch your email for more information about the conference if you're interested. Obviously, anytime you can get in touch with me. And I think that's it. Thanks to everyone for registering. Thank you to everyone who's online. I know it's field season. It's really hard to get the time, so we appreciate it. And thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye, folks.